The edge flange tool is one of the most common tools inside of the sheet metal toolbar. And before we get to that, let me show you how we can start our base flange and tab. Now, notice over here on the left-hand side, I already have some predefined equations. Now, if you're using the template that I provided, you have those pre-filled out for you. If you don't, go over here and click on the Sigma in the Tools toolbar. And if you don't have the Tools toolbar, make sure you go up to the gray section here at the top of the screen, right-click, and make sure you do turn on the Tools toolbar. I have it over here on the right hand side, and it gives me easy access to the equations manager. Over here you notice I have a couple of these predefined equations. Now you can add your own, you can create your own global variables if you want to, but if you use the template that I've already provided, you already have some predefined for you, so pretty nice. Now I'm going to make a couple changes here. I'm going to say instead of 100, I'm going to say this one's 200. The next one down, B, I'm going to call that 150, and then for C, let's go ahead and call that 70. All right, so those are defined now, and go ahead and click on OK. Now I want to go over to Sketch, come up to Smart Dimension. Let's go ahead and assign a value here to the top one. So right now it's 100 millimeters, but I actually want to link that back to that global variable. So to do that, just go ahead and click on equal on your keyboard, and then come down here to global variables, and come over here and let's go ahead and link that to A. Click OK, click OK. Over here, do the same thing. Place a dimension, click on equals in your keyboard, global variables, come down to B, link that together, click OK. Now it's fully defined, and it's also linked back to those equations. Pretty handy. Now let's go over to sheet metal, click on base flange tab tool, and over here I have a 1.2 millimeter thickness, which sounds fine. The K factor doesn't really matter at this point, but we definitely will be changing that later on. But right now it's set at 0.32. So just go ahead and click on OK. And there it is. Now, if we ever wanted to change the size of that, we could easily just jump back over here to the equation editor, make some modifications here, click on OK, make sure you hit rebuild at the top of the screen, and it's going to modify your part to the size you want. Now let's jump into the edge flange. So over here, click on edge flange. Let's go ahead and choose a few edges. How about this one right here? Drag that up. And by the way, you can also do multiple edges at the same time. So I can choose this edge over here if I wanted to, and you can choose these outside edges as well. So all of them in one shot. Now over here, notice the bend radius is grayed out. So if you want to change that, you have to go back to the sheet metal feature itself to make a modification. I can make a few other changes here as far as the gap distance, the angles, and so on. And then of course, I can change the flange length. In this case here, it is 22 millimeters. But over here, I can also hit equals and link that back to that global variable, which we call C, and then go ahead and click on OK. Down here also we have the flange position, and we have multiple ways we can create that flange. Now notice the first one here is material on the inside. So what that means is the defined rectangle we started with, which was 200 by 150. If we use this one here, that rectangle will still be that same size because it's making that bend to the inside and actually using up some of that material. So at the end of the day, the part is still exactly the same size. If I were to put this material on the outside, you would add 2 material thicknesses to the outside shape. And same thing over here, if you add a bend on the outside, you're not only going to add a material thickness, but you're also going to add the bend radius to the size of your box. If you don't believe me, let's go ahead and just try that out real quick. Let's click on that one there, which is going to be material and bend outside. Go ahead and click OK. And then go over here and click on the measure tool. And let's just measure from here to here. And you can see it is 8.05 inches, but in this case we want to be measuring in millimeters. So let's go over here and click on the units precision, switch over to millimeters, click on OK, and notice it is 204.4. Remember, we wanted to have this thing only 200, and that's the problem. So make sure we go back to that edge flange, edit the feature itself, and then come down here and make sure we're using the material on the inside. Click on OK. And I'm going to go ahead and actually change this sketch so we don't see it. And then let's go ahead and just click on measure from the outside here over to here. Hey, it's exactly 200. Awesome. Same thing over here to here. Should be 150, and it is. So that is the size that we want. The other thing I want to point out, if you click on the measure tool, from the top here down to the bottom should be 70, and it is. However, if you were to change the way this flange was produced, for instance, if you had this option here, which is inner virtual sharp chosen, click on OK. Notice the value is exactly the same. It's 70 millimeters. but check it out. So if you go over here to measure, choose the bottom of the box, click on the top of the box, and notice it's 71.2. So that can really throw off your entire design. And of course, if you then weigh or measure the box for your free response answers on the exam, it's going to be wrong. So definitely make sure to double check that. And in fact, what I would recommend is not only making sure you double check it yourself, but then come back with the measure tool afterwards and just verify that the final size of your box here is exactly the size you're expecting it to be. Now that's the basics for the edge flange as well as the base flange tab. Now the one thing I want to point out is definitely double check all those little input boxes to make sure you're getting the right type of flange that you're expecting, because that's a definite potential for error on the exam. If you accidentally clicked on the wrong one of those buttons, you then have a flange maybe on the outside versus the inside, and your overall size and weight are going to be wrong. So definitely double check that. That is the edge flange tool inside of the sheet metal package.